Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Introduction to AI in Education. So, for today's agenda, we're going to do a quick overview of artificial intelligence, a review of AI in education, and AI in teaching and learning, an example on how we can use ChatGPT for accommodation ideas, the ethical and security concerns, as well as some Q&A. So, for the refresher on types of AI, so there's two different types that we're really speaking about. And that is traditional AI, which refers to systems that are designed to perform specific tasks based on predefined rules and data sets. So, this would be considered chatbots as well as virtual assistants. So, if you ever log into a website and you have to talk to a virtual assistant or an AI tool, it can really only answer specific questions that it has been trained upon. Virtual assistants can include Alexa, Google Home, Bixby, Siri, and a lot of those type of tools. Generative AI and large language models are AI systems that are capable of generating content based on inputs and prompts, often utilizing deep learning techniques. So these are the tools that made education a little bit scary in their sense of AI because you are not only just creating the predefined rules and data sets, but this tool could take your prompts and actually create new information. So some examples that you may have heard are ChatGPT, Dolly, Gemini, Bing and AI, Copilot, as well as Claude. And there's actually more tools out there, and it seems like almost every single day there's another tool out there that's being created. So to take a look on the example of where AI lives also in the field of data science. So data science is at the very bottom. It's a cross-disciplinary field that seeks to extract value from data. It includes artificial intelligence, which is the with the ability to learn and reason like humans, but also machine learning, which this is the algorithm. So these are the traditional data or traditional AI, which would have the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed, as well as deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning and the artificial neural networks to learn from large data sets. So all of this is part of artificial intelligence. So, a quick overview of AI in education. So, the importance of integrating AI. So, this can address the needs of students by providing them personalized learning experiences as well as preparing them for the demands of a rapidly changing world. We want to ensure that the students are receiving the skills necessary to be 21st century citizens in being successful within their future careers. But it can also streamline administrative tasks for educators. So, it does work also for us. It does enhance teaching and learning experiences. So you can transform teaching and learning by offering adaptive learning environments, intelligent tutoring systems, as well as data-driven insights. It does provide more effective instruction, as well as improved student outcomes and the development of essential 21st century skills. So one thing that's very important to note about AI is AI is not necessarily new. The term AI was coined in 1950s, and between 1950s and 1980s, there was limited impact in education because the initial developments of AI focused on the foundational AI concepts. From 1990s to 2000s, this is really when when the computers became popular in the classrooms and the integration of AI technologies like expert systems and educational software started. So once the technology was started to get more involved, AI technologies and educational software also got involved. In the 2010s and 2020s, we saw a rapid growth in AI applications from virtual classrooms, so that's Canvas, Google Classrooms, to adaptive learning platforms, transforming the educational landscape. So this is when it actually became really interesting in the world of education, in the field of education, with AI and personalized learning experiences, as well as the tools that are getting embedded in our everyday lives. So for AI and teaching and learning, so there's four different ways that you can use it. So there's the intelligent tutoring systems, personalized learning paths. So this means that you can tailor learning experiences to individual student needs and preferences. Adaptive learning platforms. So this is it adjusts the content and pacing based on student performance and mastery. So based on how the student is responding to the questions, it provides them a more of a even flow of pacing with where meeting them where they are in order to master the content. And there's also AI tools that aid educators in creating engaging and effective lesson plans. I know that oftentimes we all love to create lesson plans, but there's times that we actually, are feel stuck and feel like we are not having the best ideas for the lesson plans. There's actually AI tools out there to help educators create more engaging and effective lesson plans. What's really great is there's also AI-driven tools for learners with special needs. So these are just four examples. So we have Microsoft Translator, which is designed for individuals with hearing impairments. We have Lookout by Google, which is created for learners with visual impairments. Speechified Text Reader, which was developed for learners with dyslexia, ADHD, and low vision. And then there's Nuance, which are individuals who have trouble writing or have a restricted mobility. The speech recognition software can help translate words. Some of the notable AI tools for teaching and learning, and these are just a few that are out there. There's a plethora that have been created since this recording, as well as probably since this morning. So Canvas does have AI enhanced features. Turnitin is a plagiarism detection and feedback tool that we use. Education Copilot is an AI-powered virtual teaching assistant. Diffit is an adaptive learning platform for math education. There's actually a lot of AI tools for math education. And Conquer AI is an AI-driven content creation and curation platform. So it's out there to help faculty as well as teachers create content and curate the content once it's been created. Additional tools is we have the Microsoft Reader Check. So this is an AI tool assessing reading comprehension. Quizlet is actually a really cool AI-powered study tool. So it is one of those tools that, based on how the student is responding to the questions, it shows them different questions and gets them into the mastery level of the content. Duolingo is a language learning platform. So based on, once again, adaptive learning. So once, depending on how the individual is answering it, they will show different content. Grammarly has a writing assistant that uses AI for grammar and style suggestions. And smartboards actually have interactive whiteboards with AI enhanced features. So let's take a look on how we can use AI to personalize assessments for students with accommodations. So this might be an example of how to use AI within your own teaching and learning. So the idea is, imagine you're a faculty member teaching a diverse class of students who have varying learning needs. Your student Emily has informed you that she has dyslexia and has specific accommodations identified. But what other ways can you help her understand the content? So this is an example to be used in conjunction to the accommodations identified by the Office of Disabilities. But this is the prompt that I asked ChatGPT for accommodation ideas. I have a student in my undergraduate level course who has dyslexia. Can you provide a bullet point list of accommodations to assignments that will make it easier for them to succeed in my course? It provided lots of examples. I believe it provided 10, but here I have listed 6. So we have the use of assistive technology, provide lecture notes in advance, alternative formats for materials, use visual aids, encourage oral presentations, and break down complex instructions. So this way, ChatGPT was able to provide me with some examples of ways that I could utilize technology and how I could actually help my student who has dyslexia understand the content better. But what's really great about this is that a lot of these information, such as providing lecture notes in advance, alternative formats for materials, as well as encourage oral presentations, those could also help other students that may not have necessarily have dyslexia, but just learn in a different way. One of the things that we want to be very mindful of is the information that we're putting into the AI tools. So we do have at New York Tech, we do have a data classification matrix, which is a really great tool to discuss what is public data, restricted data, as well as confidential data. So public data is press releases, course information, and research publications. So this is data that you could probably find elsewhere on the interwebs, as well as Google and on our website. Then there's confidential data. So confidential data is data protected by the state or federal privacy regulations. So you can think about this as HIPAA and FERPA, as well as data protected by confidential agreements. So this is social security numbers, maybe home addresses, additional data information. And you never want to put this information into an AI tool because that allows a security risk and then allows other people's information to be sent elsewhere and used on the dark web. Restricted data is all institutional data that is not explicitly classified as confidential or public, but should be treated as restricted data. So this is the gray area of our data, right? So we want to take a step back and think about the purpose of utilizing this AI tool with this data. So this data we'll go through this a little bit further, but this data you may have to actually scrub of any identifier information as well as make it more anonymous in order for it to be used in a AI tool. Or you may want to not even include this type of data in an AI tool, even after removing all of the identifiers that you can. So there's a data privacy paradigm. So the ChatGPT and other our large language models are trained on data sets from the public data as well as user prompts. So the large language models learn from user interactions, which magnifying the risk of leaked information being used for nefarious reasons. So what you're putting into the tool is learning from. One of the core challenges posed by generative AI right now is unlike conventional applications, large language models have no delete button from the consumer side. The delete button comes from the application and its software developer side only. There's also no straightforward mechanism to unlearn specific information and no equivalent to deleting a row in your database's user table. So if you thought you cleaned and scrubbed your data, and then all of a sudden you see that you put people's username and passwords were in there, there's no way of saying, oh, just kidding, I want you to delete just those informations. So it's very important to be very mindful of what data that you're actually putting into these softwares because we do not want to have any risk issues or any leaked information getting tied back to the use of this tool. One of the things that you can do is you can actually ask the software companies for a privacy statement or how do they use their tools. We'll give you some questions at the end to ask them. But this is an example of one that we received when I went to the software company and said, hey, talk to me about your data retention for your tool. And it says our AI, developed and maintained by OpenAI, so that is the tool that created ChatGPT, does not retain personal information from users' interactions. Perfect. It does not retain it. It's not being kept on a cloud server, on a actual server, or somebody's not writing it down and throwing it into a file cabinet. It also says that in line with privacy and data protection best practices, the information is provided during interactions is processed to generate responses and is not stored after the conversation ends. So once again, they're not retaining any personal information and they're not storing the conversation after it ends. Perfect. So we prioritize our user privacy, ensuring that conversations are confidential and not used for any purpose beyond providing immediate responses. Great. So now they're showing us that their tool is not learning from our conversations. And they say our commitment to privacy is reflected in adherence to strict data protection standards, including the compliance with relevant regulations such as the GDPR, which is the European Union privacy laws, and the CCPA, which is the California privacy laws, to safeguard user information effectively. So when I read this privacy statement, I see that they do not retain the personal information from user interactions. They do not store any information after the conversation ends. The conversations are confidential and not used for any purposes beyond providing immediate responses. So they're not selling the data. They're not training their system on the data. And they're also following the GDPR and CCPA regulations, which is great. So this tool sounds safe. So some key security risks that we want to make sure that we review is that there's the data retention and misuse component. So this is when personal information is shared in a chat, such as addresses or phone numbers, and they could be retained and potentially assessed and used inappropriately due to inefficient deletion policies. So if you have some personal information in there, you put it into the chat, into the AI tool, it may get reused in nefarious ways. There's also the proprietary information leakage. So if you're working on a project and you have working with a confidential information or proprietary code, you do not want to put those into an AI tool because that allows information to be leaked and could be exploited by a competitor to gain a market advantage, but it could also just be another security risk that we do not want to have in there. There's also the data privacy regulations. So we referenced two data privacy regulations in the previous slide with the European Union as well as California, but information shared with a large language model hosted in a different legal jurisdiction might inadvertently violate laws about international data transfers. So you also want to be mindful of where the tools are being stored and created. So how to use AI safely? So you want to be mindful of the personal information. So you don't want to have a lot of personal information out there. And you also want to understand the privacy settings. So that's discussing with and asking the software company exactly what the privacy settings are. You don't want to overshare. So this reminds me of when we first got Facebook and everybody was putting their first and last name, their maiden names, where they went to high school, what year did they graduate from high school, where are they checking in, where are they going, where are they going to college, where do they work? And we were just providing a lot of information on social media when it first started. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to scale that back. And that's really what we want with AI is you do not want to overshare. Anonymize what you can. You also want to think critically and you want to be mindful of understanding the tools that we're using and know that AI is not perfect. So it does still need that human touch and human capability. You want to report any inappropriate content. So if the AI tool is providing you with inappropriate content or some hallucinated responses, you want to report that to the software company because that can help them deter their tool and retrain their tool because there might be something wrong with it. You also want to be cautious of AI generated messages. So this is messages that you receive that you did not go above and beyond to ask it any questions. You should always be the one that's prompting AI to provide the response. AI should not be reaching out to you first. You also don't want to solely rely on AI. Like I said, AI is not perfect. It's created by humans. There's unconscious bias. There's blind spots in the data sets. There's always the issues with prompt engineering that you might not be getting the best prompt. You might be getting hallucinated answers. So you do not want to solely rely on AI. It could be a really great rough draft, but it should not be your final draft. And you also want to stay informed. So staying informed means taking trainings, learning about what is going on in your industry and your field with AI tools, and staying in the know. And that's something that the New York Tech community, as well as ATS, is trying to do for you, is to ensure that you're staying informed and have these opportunities for professional and personal development, as well as fully understanding the tools that are available to you. So a couple more ways that you can secure your digital footprint is you can use anonymization techniques. So before submitting the text for grammar checking, you want to anonymize or alter names, locations, and identifiable details within the document. So you want to make sure that it does not know a lot of information about you, but it knows enough to be able to provide you a response. You want to use hypothetical scenarios or anonymize the content to avoid a context to avoid revealing specific strategies or technologies. You do not need to have a very specific example. You can actually use hypothetical scenarios as well. You want to understand and leverage the privacy policies. So this is where you want to review and understand the updates and the privacy policies of large language model providers. Ask the service provider about the data retention and deletion practices to assess the security of your data. So you saw that I did that with a sample privacy statement, but you want to make sure that you understand fully where your data is going. You can also seek secure alternatives. So for sensitive discussions, opt for platforms that offer end-to-end encryption to ensure that conversations remain confidential. There also are opportunities for you to examine the free version versus the paid version um, of a tool, because sometimes the paid version can provide more of a secure uh, encryption and secure alternate to the free version. So that's something that you may want to also examine is, okay, how do they secure my data? How am I secure with the free version of this tool versus the paid version of the tool? And if you're going to be using the tool a lot, you might as well go with the paid version to keep you safe. Speaking of keeping you safe, so New York Tech, we are trying to keep you safe. So we're currently developing and vetting a process for the use of AI tools. ATS does not currently support the AI functions of these tools, but once they have been vetted, we are here to help. One of the great examples of this is that there's a lot of Office 365 AI tools in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel that we are actually going to be doing trainings on. You want to use the tools at your own risk. So you want to anonymize your prompts when possible. Also, you want to use your personal email address to create the accounts if necessary for these tools. The reason being is your NYIT is actually a way to as a self-identifier, so that the tool actually knows that someone who works or goes to school at NYIT is using the tool. Whereas if you use your Gmail address, it's just another person using Gmail. And you also want to see how long the apps keep your info and what do they do with it. So there are some really great alternatives out there for the keeping you safe. So we also have ethical considerations. We want to ensure transparency and accountability. So what exactly, that's the AI decision-making process. So what exactly does this tool do? Is it transparent? Does it tell me what it's doing with my data? You want to also do ethical use and grading. So if you're going to be using these AI tools like Turnitin, you want to make sure it's a fair and unbiased application of AI in the student evaluation. So you don't want to just take you don't want to take the AI response as the response. You want to also have that human element of like, whoa, it says it's 65% plagiarized. Let me take a look at this. Oh, the student just didn't really understand paraphrasing versus direct quotes. That's a conversation we can have. So you want to make sure that you're using ethical use and grading. You also want to establish guidelines. So this could be for AI-powered research projects on your own. So if you're going to be using AI tools for your research, but this could also be guidelines for use of AI tools in your classroom. You want to make sure that the students and yourselves understand the bumpers on the bowling alley. So then they understand, can they use these tools? Can they not use these tools? How much support do they have to cite the use of these tools? So those that you want to definitely establish guidelines. And I do know that there's actually a lot of committees currently at New York Tech trying to also help the faculty with figuring out these guidelines of like, how can we handle this tool? That's awesome, but also scary. There's also the unconscious bias. So this is also a mini platform, a little soapbox of mine. But humans create the algorithms and inadvertently add their own biases to the data sets. So you want to be mindful that the data sets that you are working with and the tools that you're working with may have someone's unconscious bias. So it may not be 100% accurate. It may not be 100% diverse. And you want to be very mindful of that as well. So that's where you want to take this data and take this information and make it your own and use it almost as a rough draft or a first draft rather than taking it as stone, written on stone.